Okay, welcome back. This is the last video of the week, and this is my rambling one. Just to warn you, this is a bit. Basically, it's going to be about the 3 documentaries made about exploitation movies. Plus, I'm going to look at 3 examples of Ozploitation movies, which is the subject of the first film I'm going to cover. So basically, I'm going to cover Not Quite Hollywood, which is the film about Ozploitation. I'm going to cover 3 films by Brain Trenchard Smith, set in its time, and then I'm going to cover 2 more documentaries made by the same people. Hopefully that makes sense now. I'll get there as I go through the video, okay? Right, so Not Quite Hollywood is a film made by Mark Hartley. I think it was made about 2009 or something. It's all about exploitation films, Australian exploitation films. Like in the 70s and 80s, Australia became a well-known art house cinema, provider with stuff like Picnic and Pine Rock and certain arty, films that win awards. But at the same time, it was making a lot of exploitation films, just like any other country was. In the 70s and 80s, and the 60s as well, there was lots of exploitation movies coming from the 50s when you do Roger Corman cheapies. After that, in the 60s, the other countries got in line, like the Italians and stuff, and they really started cranking them out, saying you can do a lot on a low budget. There's always drive-ins who'll take these films, always lower level exploitations, and will take these films. So a lot of films get made. And then the 70s Australians worked it out as well. It was like, we can be making some money in this, we can be doing some cool films. So they started making exploitation films, became exploitation films. The most successful of these was Mad Max, and of course was followed by the rest of the Mad Max series, which became from World War onwards, they became funded by Warner Brothers and became big studio films. But Mad Max was Mad Max. The first one was a exploitation movie. There were other films, like the Stork films, that were sex comedies. There was horror movies like Patrick. There was, there's tons of movies. There was the Barry Mackenzie movies, which were crude comedies. A bunch of movies made by different directors, all of whom were trying to make a living. There was road games, stuff like that. I mean, this documentary covered all of this. The mentality of the makers behind it, how they hated that a lot of them hated the kind of respectable cinema, all that my brilliant career and things. They wanted to do films people would watch, people in their generation would watch, rather than the films that were made for foreign audiences. They wanted to make films that people would actually see in Australia that they would like. So that was the idea, is make films for the working classes. So, of course, they get utterly trashed by the critics. They were hated by the critics. I mean, they were really despised, a lot of these films. Some got respect, like Mad Max, because it was so well crafted, and some of the road games got some respect. But most of them weren't. Most of them were trashed. I mean, if like me you like some of those trashy films, this is a wonderful film to look through and see. I have to see that, I have to see that, I have to see that. But for a lot of critics it was like, oh, this is awful, we will have to come down a ton of bricks in these films. These should not represent Australia to the world. So some of these films were hated. And it shows, the documentary goes on to show you why it peaked and it crashed. Because in the 80s it kept on going for a while, but sometimes they'd spend too much money in certain films and the budgets would rise above what the level of audience was. And then when the VHS generation hit, the drive-ins died off and there was less advanced sales to make the films. Or the advanced sales were lower level because just for VHS, so the budgets were slashed. And it was much easier to make films like in the Philippines or in there was some of them German produced exploitation movies that were coming out at the same time that probably could make these films cheaper because they were made in countries with a worse economy, and they were easier to make and be produced and sent to video rather than some of these exploitation movies which were a bit more ambitious. They were like exploitation movies but some of them had ambitions to be better than that. You know, not to be intellectual, just to be like higher production values. And then when the market didn't really support that, and then VHS came out, the market really didn't support that, and then they slowly died. And there was lots of films made when VHS was coming in that were like Sky Pirates or something, stuff like that, where they spent a lot of money in films that couldn't really, you know, support that kind of investment. There wasn't a marketplace. There was a marketplace for smaller budget films if you made it responsibly, but even they get hit in the glut, and eventually the whole thing collapsed because there was nothing there anymore. So there was a big rise. Some talent get through it, and then it crashed, and a lot of people either had to move to studios or work in other countries' exploitation cinema. So this film covers it all. It's very entertaining because there's lots of eccentric directors and actors who don't really mind taking the piss at themselves and other people, and who enjoy talking about how horrible some of the films were and how fun some of them were. And it's like very unpretentious Australian commentators versus some very pretentious story critics. So you get two different focus. One unpretentious, one very pretentious. So it's funny to watch the clash. And you've got some producers, exploitation producers who are in it for the money, but who, while getting money, end up helping produce some good films and helping some good talent get paid and move on a bit. So it was a complicated situation, like any film industry is, but eventually it crashed. But the documentary is great fun. There's some extras on there as well. It's like extended interviews and things. It's on DVD. I think it's a Blu-ray as well. It's definitely worth seeing. It's really wonderful. There's 3 films I've seen recently that are worth talking about from that period by Brain Trenchard Smith, who was kind of like the guy who was peaked during that time. Like, he did not become George Miller of Mad Max. He was kind of like the George Miller light, but he still made some really good films. So he's worth, especially in the 80s, but he's really worth looking at. He made The Man from Hong Kong, which is this the first Australian kung fu movie. You know, so you basically get a guy imported from Hong Kong, who apparently was a horrible person to work with, who was very egotistical, and he's going around trying to hunt someone down in Australia, and he's dealing with all these Australian characters who are very, you know, Aussie and straight to the point and kind of racist at times. So it's very rough and tumble, but the action scenes are terrific. You've got George Lazenby as the villain who he's trying to kill, and Lazenby's having a lot of fun. There's some terrific fight scenes throughout. There's some chase sequences. You've got one of the most awful lead actors outside of Steven Seagal as a lead, but he can fight. So it's just don't have him talk much. Just let him fight everybody. But it's a wonderful film though. I mean, it's a great fun film because it keeps on moving. It's like, it knows what the flaws are. It knows this leading man's a pain in the arse. Let's not have him talk much, let's have him fight as much as possible. So that's what they did, and it's like 90 minutes and about 80 minutes feels like it's fighting. It's wonderful. And you can get it from Australia. You can get it imported quite easily. I'd recommend it. The Umbrella's done a really good release of it, where you get commentaries, interviews, plus you get a couple of extra Brain Trenchard Smith films as well. It's great fun, you know. So I'm sorry, I just dropped a bit of paper. So that's definitely worth seeing. The next one is Turkish Shoot, the notorious Turkish Shoot. And Turkish Shoot was a film made by Trenchard Smith a few years after that. This is a film that was meant to be it's an exploitation film, but there's some money involved to build like good sets and things, where it was a 1984 type scenario where the repressive government, people were put in jail for any minor social infraction, and they were basically slaves in this jail doing cheap labour and getting brutalised with the guards, and it's just very horrible. And the the lead villain who runs the camp's called Thatcher, which tells you how unsubtle the politics are. Then, not long before the film was made, his budget was slashed because they're running out of money, and a lot of the extras were cut down, so there is a big set and very few people there. And Trenchard Smith had to make a film out of it. Steve Railsback from Stuntman, Liver Hussey from Romeo and Juliet. They look. There's a what the hell, man? The film became an exploitation classic. It became really like lots of blood, lots of gore. Like it's pretty obvious they're making half this up as they go along. Apparently, the first 20 minutes of the script were cut out so they'd extend all the other sequences, which you can tell because every action scene goes on for too long. Every action scene's like 20% too long, 30% sometimes. It's like you've lots of running scenes where they're running because it becomes a most dangerous game type scenario as these people who are in the camp are hunted down for sport for the big government people and then they get hunted down. But it goes on too long always because it's every sequence you see them doing lots of running, but it's so much running that there's not much pace sometimes because you need to intercut running scenes to actually make it suspenseful, and this film doesn't have that all the time because they're trying to get it up to 90 minutes. So they're lucky they've a decent director doing it because he makes it look good despite its problems, but it's a real problem film because they don't have the money. And obviously to make up for it, it gets very cartoonish. Now there's rumours this film had producers going to the racetrack to try and bet money and get more money for the film during the production. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it's a really good, story. But it is a mess. It's a complete mess, but it's so tasteless after a while that it's funny to watch because they add like this wolf man who likes to eat little toes and it's basically a cannibal. It's a very homophobic society, but two of the hunters are obviously gay. So it's very confused that direction as well. It's wonderfully confused. Glad we're not like this film. It's just so sadistic and so tasteless that it's wonderful and really tasteless at the same time. You're going to enjoy it. If you like exploitation, you're going to enjoy it, but it's not a good film. You can defend it's a good film, but it's enjoyably trashy. And you can tell there's a bit of film originally planned, but it got chucked out. So it's definitely worth seeing though. I'm definitely trying to see it. You can see it. There's a region free Blu-ray for America that's worth seeing because you get some lot of extra commentaries and you get like makings of, and you get a lot of the actors complaining about the film and how it turned out. And it's funny how none of them blame the director. It's like they blame the producers, but they all like the director. It's like everyone knows it wasn't his fault. So it's kind of funny when we get a film that's such a disaster that and they still like the director. That says a lot about the director. Okay, final Brain Trenchard Smith film of the exploitation era. Ozploitation. This is a late era period of Dead End Drive-In. This was made as the video craze came in. This was like, it was obviously a lower budget than Turkey Shoot, even though Turkey Shoot was slashed. It was made mid-80s. It's another authoritarian government. It could always be the same government as Turkey Shoot. It could always be like another offshoot of that world. And this time there's a drive-in where all the lots of unemployed people who go there for a discount are suddenly trapped in the drive-in. Like because there's not enough jobs around in society, instead of trying to find them jobs, they let society fall apart outside, and inside when you drive and you're stuck there. They don't know that until they're stuck there. It's like you cannot leave this place because the government said you don't have a job, you have to stay here till you die, basically. And it's basically a couple who go there, and one of them tries to make a life there. The woman tries to make best of what's available. Because they're getting fed typical drive-in stuff like burgers and everything is bad for you. Stuff that you can only take when, like in small doses amongst other healthy foods. They're getting that all the time. And they're getting vouchers to get the food. So the woman tries to make a life of it. The guy's focused on escaping and focused on working out how this works and who's involved and why they're involved and how do you escape. And as it goes on, basically, it's watching him try to figure out escape and failing and figuring it out again and try and think, can he make a life there? And then realise, no, he has to get out. And you're watching how the society starts to slowly fall apart as like minorities come into it at some point are brought into the drive-in, and some of the whites are a bit racist about that and are blame them for all the problems. And it's like, you know, the way things happen with certain stupid white people, you know, it's others' fault, you know. Or it's not even, it's any stupid person. I mean, in any society, another comes in, it's their fault for the problems. But in this case, it's the white guys who are like that. And it's just a wonderful, after the first 10 minutes like a Mad Max rip-off, you see the outside world, and it's not that interesting. But as soon as they get to the actual camp and they're stuck there, that's when it gets interesting. You just see them trying to survive in this camp, this drive-in, you know, this survival camp, they're trying to survive in it and trying to, you see the cliques evolve and you see how people evolve into tribes and these, and it's one of those situations where having not much money in the budget means you have to be more focused on the script and that, how it works. None of the acting is great in this film. They can't hire lots of good actors, but they use the actors' limitations to their strength. These characters are young, they're stupid, so it means they don't have to develop the characters to be anything but that. You just see them evolving slightly, but they're not going to evolve that much out of those characters. But they take what the actors can bring to the character and use situations to evolve them rather than give them tons of long speeches. That's what the film does really well. It's still an exploitation movie. It's an exploitation movie. It's 90 minutes. I would do a terrific release of it on Blu-ray. Another one with a commentary and a booklets and things. It's definitely worth seeing. It's a nice little 80s B movie. That's all it is, but it's really enjoyable. It's one of those films they could remake it really well, I think. If you get a couple of good actors, you can make it even more spare and more brutal and more like ridiculous. You can really do something with it, but it's never been remade. I don't know why it was never remade, because it's one of those ideas that could work really good now. So that's the Ozploitation movies I was going to bring up. Right, there's two other films that Mark Hartley made. One was called Machete Meetings. This was a documentary about the Filipino movies that Roger Corman produced in the 60s and 70s. Well, it starts off showing the exploitation movies made before Corman got involved. Like, there was these like Eddie Romero films that were like monster movies, and they were cheap and nasty, but they were just campy basically. But they were made for a very limited budget, and then Roger Corman saw, oh, I can shoot stuff in the Philippines for the cheap. And because it's a, you know, totalitarian state, they can make deals. So here's this guy who got a reputation for doing a lot of liberal causes, funding films in a totalitarian state on the cheap. But there's a lot of Americans living there who could tell me it's really good living around here, you can actually make money cheap. And to be honest, he brings money in and he ends up giving, people get paid there to be able to produce these films and they can make a living. So I mean, it's not all bad. I mean, the people there do manage to make a living off these films because they keep getting made year after year for a long time. So they start bringing in talent from America, like Pam Grier, The Big Birdcage. There's lots of exploitation. Like any of the women in prison movies were made in the Philippines. There was just tons of like exploitation films, like kung fu movies starring like different actresses who couldn't kung fu. There was this midget guy who, well, these weren't Roger Corman movies, this midget guy who did all these Bond parodies. There was lots of really weird movies made in the Philippines, because it started out non-Roger Corman. Roger Corman got involved. Then at a certain point he realised these films weren't making as much money anymore, and it was time to move on to the next thing, and he started making more films in America again. But because the thing had evolved by then, and there was an industry, other exploitation producers came in and made films, and Roger Corman still financed certain films, like co-produced them, and he'd exhibit them in America, and some of them were pretty shoddy and had to be recut. And because there was an interview with Joe Dante in this talking about how certain films they had to recut that came from the Philippines just to make them, and reshoot certain bits of them just to make them like passable for drive-ins, because they weren't made properly, but they had to do something with them. There was stuff like that going on. The whole film is just wonderful look at exploitation in a very kind of dodgy area, and how like some fun films are made there, and how like some directors get a lot of leeway because in the Philippines and no one cared. So they got to do stuff with the Big Birdcage, which was these silly OTT exploitation movies, and they could do some political stuff in them because they were criticising America, not the Philippines. So it didn't matter. So they're doing a lot of films about authoritarian governments and an authoritarian government. So that's quite fun. So the documentary is terrific. There's some really good extras, interviews with different people involved, including Robert Mitchum's son Chris Mitchum, who was involved in a lot of these films as well. It's a really good Blu-ray, because the Blu-ray also comes, and this I've got, comes with Electric Boogaloo, which is the other film we talk about, which is the rise and fall of canon films. This was the Milan Golem and Globus something or other. They did a lot of tacky films in the late 70s in Israel, and then they moved to America in the 80s and bought over canon films and started making Chuck Norris films and Chuck Bronson films, and got too big for their boots, and ended up making stuff like Life Force and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and then Superman 4, and then collapsing it into debt when they'd spent so much money in movies but hadn't realised they had to make some of them good. So they did some really bad films like Brooke Shields Sahara, and a movie about a monkey where the monkey was a guy in a suit. That's a wonderful documentary all about the insanity of these guys who just made these tacky films. The funny thing is, if you grew up in the 80s, you saw a lot of canon films. They did American Ninja, they did all these other ninja films. You would see all these films in a video shop. Like, you'd never watch them in the cinema, you'd watch them in the video shop. They produced Masters Universe as well. They would do all these films that you'd see in video shops, and you'd had to just rent them out and see them. And there were all these tacky films you enjoyed because they were just over the top and rubbish but fun. And that was the whole output, just this tacky garbage that was weirdly enjoyable. I mean, I think they stocked a good third of any video shop, either by direct production or co-production. You know, they were very much part of the landscape. So this is a documentary about that. I would highly recommend it. There's a lot of good extras on it as well. I'm going to just say go see it yourself. I'm not going to bother. My battery's running out here, so I'm going to finish now. So enjoy this. I hope you enjoyed the video. Go see the film. It's wonderful. Okay, bye.